Welcome to the Freelance Tribe. Here we talk with skilled freelancers about their professional journey. Stay tuned for real life experiences to learn and actionable steps to take to improve your freelancing career. My name is Yuri. I'm a community builder at Code Control and 9am.works, and my guest is Maja Nenadov Webster, a co-founder of Freelancing For Good, a community of impact-driven freelancers who use their careers to make the world a better place, and a marketing consultant who helps charities, nonprofits, and social enterprises amplify their impact. And today we'll discuss how aligning freelancing with your values opens up new opportunities, helps you stand out, and creates more meaningful connections with clients. So, welcome, Maja.
Well, well, thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Super happy to talk to a fellow community builder and a freelancer. And yeah, let's start from the whole beginning. So, what inspired you to co-found Freelancing for Good, and how did your personal values influence that decision?
Yeah, so well, I think it goes all the way back to my childhood. So I was one of those kids who would kind of, pick up stray animals on the way back home from school and bring it to home. And my parents would think like, oh no, more dogs, more cats.
Again.
Again, she found something again. Yeah, and I think we all thought that when I grow up, that's will kind of like go away, me wanting to save every possible abandoned animal. But it actually only kind of like, grew even more. And yeah, just like that, desire to help animals was like really engraved in me from the, very, very beginning. And yeah, I kind of like went through, I studied business and economics, and I went through like all sorts of stages trying to figure out what is the thing that's working for me. So I went through, like corporate world, startup world. And then I was always, like wanting to do something that will actually mean more to me. It really hit home for me when like I left my corporate job where I was like really working hard because I loved the job. I just didn't like the environment. But then when you see how easily you're replaced, like all projects that you started someone else is taking. It's just, it really made it really hit home that like you're so replaceable, and the projects that you put years into, they just, you're gone, and, it kind of like all your work is almost gone. So yeah, then that's how I, went into freelancing. I mean, I always wanted to kind of like be my own boss, do my own thing. But it was when I went through those, two stages, and I was like, okay, yeah, it's definitely neither of those environments is the right for me. I'm gonna start freelancing. And yeah, I mean, I loved it with all ups and downs it comes to. But also the main thing for me was the flexibility it was giving me. And that was, always kind of like, okay, well, I can now travel and work. I can now, set aside a lot of money to donate to charities. I can now support more animals. And yeah, that's kind of like, it was all following my own journey into like figuring out, but how can I do more? Because it's always like, okay, when you hit one milestone, you're always kind of like, okay, well, I can do more. What's next? And so Freelancing for Good actually came out of that kind of like my own personal journey, where I really, when the pandemic started and, everything else around the world, there was like a really big need to do more and to, like all of the sudden projects that you have, like, do they actually make like, are they actually worth it at the end of the day? Like that marketing campaign, it's gonna come and go, but like, what's the impact of it? And it just like puts a different perspective to things. And that's when I also met quite a lot of people from my network, and like realized, I talked with them and realized that, I'm not alone in feeling like that. There was like a big need to do something, but there was also like a collective feeling of like, well, I'm just one person, I can't solve this issue on my own. But then, like it's a lot of drops but together we can make an ocean. So that's how I just started Freelancing for Good. It was just a landing page with resources that kind of like helped me to figure it out how I can, add more meaning into my freelancing. And then I didn't think it would grow into anything really. Because, I just put it out there and thought like, okay, let's see what happens. If it helps some person, that's great. But then people started, like there was so much interest, and they literally started asking for more. They were like, okay, well, is there gonna be some sort of community? Is there gonna be more stuff? Like you just gave us this landing page, but like where's more stuff? Is more stuff coming? And that really kind of like showed like, okay, there's a real hunger to, like do more than just, design a campaign or build a website, to actually make all those projects, more than just a way to pay your bills at the end of the month. So yeah, that's kind of like how it all started. I would say, yeah, kind of like my love for animals. If we go back to the core, it's
well, kind of human are still animals, so pretty much the same thing. And you're talking about like bringing something more than just getting paid. And I have a lot of conversation with freelancers, and sometimes they must work on projects they don't really like, but because they need money. So I'm really curious, how can freelancers align their work with their values?
Yeah, so I mean, that's kind of like a first thing that whoever joins Freelancing for Good, I make it very clear. So, like freelancing is all about flexibility, and I'm not here to tell you, well, if you don't do it, this particular thing, you don't have good values or anything like that. Like we all have different values, and everything will be different. Like what's my way of freelancing for good, it's gonna be different to you.
Yeah.
And that's that's amazing, and that's beautiful. So obviously we all have bills to pay at the end of the month, but also we are freelancing because we want to create a life that we enjoy. You have 9 to 5 if it's not the point to be freelancer and struggle. So there are people who love the work they do and love the clients they do, and then to think like, well, now you're telling me I need to start working for charities so I can make an impact. That's not what I'm promoting at all. For some people that will be the way. For example, for myself, that was the way. But for other people, there's so many other ways they can add values. They can align their work with their values. So, for example, at Freelancing for Good, we created a pledge in partnership with a nonprofit called Giving What We Can. Mm-hmm. And basically the pledge is a public commitment that you're gonna donate. So we have two options. There's a 10% pledge and there's a trial pledge. So 10% pledge is like a public commitment to donate 10% of your earnings to charities of your choice. And it just, gives that that's a great way to add impact to your freelancing, because first of all it adds that public accountability. So a lot of people do want to donate, but it just like, oh, I'll do it next month, and then that turns into a year, and so it kind of like gives you that accountability, like, okay, I said I'm gonna donate, so I'm gonna really put an hour a month to actually put that money aside and donate. It also shows your clients that you're not, that there's more to you than just, paying your bills. Because we really encourage everyone to promote that. There's kind of like that feeling that people are really shy talking about their donations, but I think we are in this like period where like we should celebrate people who are supporting charities, nonprofits, causes that matter to them. So by saying it publicly, showing it publicly, you are inspiring others to do the same. and you can create that kind of like a ripple effect. So for example, there's like people who love working with tech startups, and they're in perfect place where they can take that pledge and still, add that meaning to their freelancing without having to change anything in their business. There's also that trial pledge, which is, because I know that 10% for a freelancer can sound a bit intimidating with all those, I have 20% to pay this tax, 10% to pay this tax. So there is a trial pledge where you can set your own percentage for amount of time you want. So for example, to just test it out, you can take a pledge to say, okay, I'm going to donate 1% for the next year. And you still get the old, kind of like a public recognition and all the materials that, to prove that you actually have taken the pledge. And then after a year, you can, reassess and say, okay, now for the next year, I'm going to donate 2%. So it's all about, that keeping that flexibility. And so that's kind of like one of the ways that freelancers can literally add a whole new dimensions of meaning and impact to their work without having to change anything about their actual business model.
And you've said that some freelancers are shy of talking about their donations and helping and stuff. And I totally understand them, because I even heard was something like a saying that the good deals like silence or something like that, which is not always the case, but still. And I'm curious, how does aligning work with their values impact freelancers' relationships with clients? How does it help them to stand out?
Well, so that's kind of the thing, we are shy to talk about good things that happen. And I think that's mainly like a global thing, like news, you'll always hear the horrible news first and then good news at the end. But, who stays until the end? Who's going to watch the news, until the end just to hear? And also that good news are gonna probably sound, not as good compared to bad news. And so, when, as, clients sometimes tend to, if some freelancers, hasn't really delivered the good work to them, and then they tend to oh, we'll never work with you again. And then, there's situations where, I'm pretty sure you heard some horror stories. I've heard some horror stories as well, where reputations have been a bit damaged and stuff like that. But what about we switch that, we switch that coin and, it's the same like with recommending freelancers who have, done good work for you. Also, when you see someone who's actually, send an email with a signature where it says, I donate 10% of my earnings, or let's say 5% of my earnings to charities, that's kind of okay, there's more to this person, and it kind of goes, the same as when we're buying stuff now with, there's climate change and we're all very aware of it. You're more mindful into what you're buying and what company you're supporting. And with, by kind of publicly, acknowledging that you are supporting, that there's more to you, you are aware of all the, global issues, and you're doing your bit to help them. You are kind of getting, making your clients more mindful, okay, I'm more mindful who I'm hiring. If I'm supporting this person, I'm basically supporting this cause. And so there's also kind of a business case as well to taking that pledges, because if you're donating 5%, it's completely reasonable that you raise your prices a bit, and so it's basically your client kind of supporting you to support those causes. And I know that can sound a bit maybe contradictory, but to be able to support causes, we need to be financially, sustainable. We can't go into minus. And so, your clients won't really notice, or I haven't had any, negative feedback or backlash because I said, okay, well, I'm adding this bit into my freelancing, and that will mean that I will have to, also, raise my prices a bit. And there was never, I only had positive feedback from it, and all people that I know had, haven't really got any backlash except for like, okay, that's a great thing. And, I had also some clients who were like looking into how they can take a pledge for their organization. So it is really, we feel like we shouldn't really talk about good things we're doing. And I get it, like there are some people who are like, well, you don't want to use that to get attention, but it's not getting attention, it's inspiring others. The way you present it, it can be. But you can tell, the way, if someone's like, oh, look at me, I've donated, here's a screenshot. Or if you just kind of like say, I'm supporting this cause because I think it's important, this is how I'm supporting it. So it's all about, we can tell when someone's authentic and honest, and talks about donations in a genuine way, and when someone's using them just as some sort of like self-promotion. So, yeah.
It also sounds like overall bragging, because sometimes someone can like, hey, look at me, I'm the best expert here, I'm doing this and this and this, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes you can just tell what you do so people know. So basically it's pretty much a big difference between like when you are trying to get attention because of that, and when you are just sharing, and as you've said, inspiring others to do pretty much the same. And I wonder, what are some practical ways freelancers can find and connect with clients who also share their values?
I think as soon as you kind of like start sharing publicly your values and expressing them, you start attracting those people, and like the complete, you open up so many new opportunities, so, and I really felt that with Freelancing for Good, as like when I started really kind of like sharing it in every place I could, and just like, being proud of it, because, there are people who are genuinely excited about it and want to be part of it and want to see it grow. It's just attracted the right type of people. I've never had any issues, like I'm sure, like communities, they can be a hard work to, make sure they're high quality, that there are no people who are gonna, spam other people and stuff like that. I haven't had any of it because it just didn't attract those people, it keeps attracting the right type of people. And the same goes with clients. As soon as you start showing and expressing your values publicly, you're immediately gonna get their attention. And I just think, that's another reason why we shouldn't be shy about talking good things that we're doing, because you can really stand out. If we take, for example, a copywriter, one who's like charging lower, but it's just like charging, doing just like okay work, and the other one who's like doing equally okay work, but is charging a bit more because it's donating. I mean, you can really like that person will immediately stand out, and especially when it shares like, why is that person donating, to which causes, and then it just like adds so much, it turns even like the most boring project into something exciting, because, like, okay, well, but with this project, I'll pay my bills, I'll pay a trip to somewhere, I'll also be able to, support this charity, or, like buy food for shelter, so animals have like a month worth food or something like that. But that's one of the way. The other of the ways is, if you really want to start working with nonprofits, then also sharing your values, and kind of like it can be smooth transition, as it is for me. But also it's not really like, nothing is really black and white in freelancing. So it doesn't mean, like if there's a exciting opportunity coming your way, and it doesn't, like it's not it's not non-profit, it's like a business, but it's purpose-driven business, like it aligns with your values, meaning, like it's not damaging planet, it's doing something maybe exciting in the climate space. You don't have to say, well, oh, sorry, I won't work with you because you're not a non-profit. So it's all it's all about, kind of just really, really kind of like exploring what your values, but like your true values, what is it that you stand for, and then just like sharing that.
Yeah, and I know that some freelancers are still saying you're not non-profit, I'm not working with you, but it's always a choice. It's always like, as you've said, you can always choose your way to do it. And but we were all talking about the bright side of impact-driven freelancing, but there is always a dark side. So I wonder what is, let's say, number one work-related challenge that impact-driven freelancers face, and how can they deal with it while staying true to their values?
Okay, well, I think, well, for my kind of, I'm gonna go with my personal experience. Like sometimes there'll be some people who gonna maybe like disagree with what you're doing, or like criticize you, but not for the right reasons. So I'm all about hearing feedback, but you can kind of tell when like I've made some people a bit angry at times, or maybe triggered, simply because like the way they expect things. So for example, the thing that like triggered in my case was like was the pricing, in terms that it's not like I've been freelancing for quite a while, and I know my worth, and I know how much I should charge. And they were just like, not a lot, but like there were two cases where people expected for that to kind of like be either extremely discounted or even free. And and that's where we get into that point, like we praise like a CEO of, I don't know, for like earning I don't know how many millions, while destroying planet, but we expect people to solve the issues for free. I mean,
Yeah, it's okay for freelancers. Freelancers just do work for free, whatever. Like,
yeah, it's just a hobby.
yeah.
So I think that's kind of like potential negative side of it, that if you kind of say like, okay, well, I'm helping charities, non-profits with their causes, that there will be some people expecting you, okay, that's pro bono work. But what's happened is basically, for example, I'm marketing consultant, so I help them raise more money. I have helped them with the fundraising. So basically, I'm kind of like, through my work, I'm paying myself because they're raising more, thanks to my work. But if they didn't hire me, they would raise much less. So not only I'm paying myself, I bring more money to them so they can expand. And so it's just kind of like, if there's nothing wrong with doing some sort of like volunteer project for some charities that you really want to help out, that are really struggling. I'm not saying that, but if a like established charity that has budget comes to you and kind of like expects things for free, that's usually kind of like a red flag. Because it's also important to know that not all charities are effective, not all charities work the same way, and you shouldn't feel like a weak spot just because it's a charity. They could be not doing anything but calling themselves charity. So I think it's really important to kind of put emotions aside when assessing, when assessing in that space, because unfortunately there are, rotten apples everywhere. So, yeah.
It's interesting because some time ago I was thinking that charities and nonprofits, that people are working there for free and basically they devote their lives to this thing. But then I understood that like it's not just making money for your it's not paying dividends for other people, for owners, etc. But it still makes money to provide people lives, and especially if you are a freelancer and you are working with such kind of project, you definitely can get paid because you still have to live, and pay your bills, and it's okay, basically. So I wonder, what advice would you give to someone who are just starting their freelance journey and really want to make a positive difference through their work?
Yeah, so well, I'd kind of my first advice is like really, ec- like explore what are your values, like because we can kind of be influenced by news. So like you hear bad news about certain topics, causes, and then like impulse, I mean, you're triggered by it, and you have that need to do something, but then next week there's a completely different cause, and then you're like, okay, I
Yeah.
need to do something about that. So for example, for me, I'm really passionate about animal welfare, and even though like I support other causes occasionally and like emergency reliefs and stuff, that is my main driver, and that is kind of my guiding light. So I would say really, sit down with yourself, journal, do whatever you need, but really figure it out. What is it that you want to do? For some people, that would be, well, providing my family a really nice life, providing my children with a really, good education. And those are all, legit things to freelance for good. It doesn't freelancing for good doesn't necessarily mean you have to solve the world's pressing problems, but just contributing. If your freelancing is contributing to even one person's making lives better, that's you are you're doing it, that's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's really like go into that personal discovery journey, and when you find what is it that you want, how would that look for you, then just follow it, and don't let you'll hear conflicting advice, but if it feels right for you, then just go for it, because yeah, freelancing, it looks different for everyone. So yeah.
I wish to have the sky is the limit, but time is the limit. So the final question, what is your favorite food?
Oh, well, pizza. It has to be pizza.
Got it. Welcome to the pizza club. Okay. So, and what is the best way to connect with you?
Okay, so I'm on LinkedIn. I'm Maja Nenadov Webster, and through freelancingforgood.com, our website, you can join. We have a free Slack community that you can join and connect with other like-minded freelancers. So yeah, those two channels are the best way.
Got it. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, Maya, and it's been such a pleasure to hear and learn from you.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. So thank you for having me.
And thank you so much for listening. If you like the show, hit the like button on 5 stars and share it with your friend. That's it. We're done. See you in the next episode.